This video will help you decide what your next step in Latin will be. You have three options. 1. Discontinue Latin. 2. Regular Latin 3. Or 3. Honors Latin 3. For each option, you need to consider a few things. 1. If you decide to discontinue Latin, boo! Make sure you have a way of earning a fine arts credit. You need 3 fine arts credits to graduate. Also make sure to familiarize yourself with the requirements of your chosen colleges. Many colleges want 3 or more years of a language. Some schools like Clemson have a 3rd year as a requirement. Other schools like UGA strongly recommend taking the 3rd year, especially if your high school has the offering available. Remember that the courses you take are compared to the courses offered at your school. 2 years of a language is not very impressive if 4 years are offered. Before you cast Latin aside, verify what your dream school wants and what would make your application better than someone else's. How are you going to stand out? If you have decided to make the decision to go on to Latin 3, ayuge! You will be sorted based on your mastery of Latin. Generally speaking, students with 88 and above will go on to honors, whereas students with 87 and below probably will move on to Latin 3. In regular Latin 3, we can take the time for reviewing grammar and vocabulary from Latin 2. Your Latin teacher will talk to you about her recommendations. But of course, ask your questions and advocate for yourself if you have a strong preference of one over the other. No matter what level of Latin 3, we will be reading authentic, unaltered Latin. This year will be the cherry on your sundae. We will read Latin that was written by Romans like Ovid and Catullus. Catullus wrote love poetry. Ovid wrote about mythology. This literature has been read for thousands of years by great minds such as Winston Churchill, Oscar Wilde, Toni Morrison, J.K. Rowling, and of course, Mark Zuckerberg. It can be challenging to read the advanced grammar and unfamiliar vocabulary, but we will step you through it, as we always have. All you need is a positive attitude and a solid work ethic. But if the thought of reading Latin for a 3rd year in a row makes you die a little inside, you might not want to continue on your Latin journey. And as your teachers, we always support you in your decisions. However, if the thought of learning about culture, mythology, literature, music, art, and overall enriching yourself beyond the regular student sounds good to you, join the club. Let's hear from some students about their thoughts on Latin 3.
Hi, I'm Raven, and this is why I decided to go on to Latin 3. When thinking about my future, I thought about how I would make myself stand out versus everybody else. Most colleges usually only require or recommend 2 years of a foreign language, so if you go into Latin 3, then that puts you 1 year ahead of all those other schmoes that don't take it. Latin also makes your application stand out because a lot of people take Spanish, a lot of people take French, but not that many people take Latin, which is one thing that makes you unique. So overall, Latin has helped me thrive in other areas of study like language arts and band. In Latin 3, we learned about literary devices, which has scored me over a 100 on multiple of my language arts essays. In band, it's gotten me a 104 on my final.
So the main thing that we study in Latin is Ovid's Metamorphoses and a lot of other old texts from Latin. And it sounds really fancy and daunting, but really it's just normal passages. And the passages are like broken up into sections, so it's less scary and less intimidating. And the sections are broken up and diagrammed, like you've been doing in Latin too. And we read everything many times, so even if you do fall behind, there's a bunch of extra helpful tools on Qui and E-Class. And it's actually really cool to read original texts from like thousands of years ago. And I think a lot of the stories are pretty dramatic and cool, kind of like Latin soap operas. And overall, Latin 3 is not in any way more challenging than Latin 2. Actually, for many colleges, 3 years of a foreign language instead of 2 years is way more desirable. So choose Latin 3.
I chose to continue on to Latin 3 because in the spring of Latin 2, I started really loving Latin, and I wanted to see where it would take me. I also chose to continue on because I didn't want Miss Allgood to disown me right before going to Italy. While I was in Latin 3, I realized how much I do love Latin and how awesome it is to not read about Strithio, bless his heart, but to read real Latin text that the Romans read. And to read that text easily because you're supported 1,000% by the Latin teachers. Some of the highlights from Latin 3 have been listening to Miss Allgood's mellifluous voice when passives are learned by you, and getting to learn everyday culture, not the names of scientists. And some of these culture things were like the wedding we held and the animal sacrifices we performed. So carpe the freaking diem and take Latin 3 if you hate Salvius and want to marry a classmate.
We understand that choosing the classes you will take is tough. We will sit down with each of you and discuss how you can stand out above the crowd. Educating yourself on what colleges want will help the decision-making process. We have made an eClass page to help you with lots of online resources. Bring us all of your questions and let us know what we can do to support you.